I have 4 names: Lucy, Rachel. I joined Kenya Bureau of Standards in 1997, so I've been here for 27 years. I'm a chemist by profession, so I have a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, and I've also done MBA, which is a Masters of Business Administration as well. I joined the Standards Development Department right from the beginning in 1997, where I was involved in development of standards for the cosmetic sector. For example, we have one standard here which I developed by hand, and it's called the skincare creams, lotions and gels specification, and we developed this standard together with the technical committee on cosmetic products. In that work of development of standards, I've been able to assist the country as Secretariat to come up with more than 100 standards covering cosmetic products and more than 55 East Africa standards, harmonized standards, which we've worked together with the technical committee. A standard basically puts up the specifications for the products, and it comes up in cosmetic products. We look at the safety aspect, so we look at, for example, the limits for microbiological contamination, the limits for heavy metals, and also the labeling aspect and characteristics to ensure that the product performs. So we look at the performance aspect and the safety aspect in cosmetic products. Kenya Bureau of Standards has the database for the Kenya standards in the country. So we have a fully stocked resource center library where you can be able to come and buy the standards, and you can also be able to purchase the same online through the KEBS website. Yeah, for the development of cosmetic standards, the development process of the standards through the technical committee process has 6 stages. So we start with the proposal, which can come in from any stakeholder in the country. After that, it goes to the technical committee. These are the experts. And then from there, once the technical committee drafts the document, then it is released for public review. It's released for stakeholder consultations, usually for a period of at least 60 days. After that, the committee discusses the comments which are coming in from the stakeholders and come up with the final standard, which now goes in for balloting for ownership purposes. From there, it goes for approval by the National Standards Council, which is the board of the Kenya Bureau of Standards. And the last stage is the gazettement, where it is gazetted in the Kenya Gazette. Kenya Bureau of Standards is a secretariat to the National Committee on Technical Barriers to Trade, which is the linkage to the International Committee, the World Trade Organization. From there, we are able to look at the challenges coming from the private sector and be able to address them to the market and also to the to our key trading partners. And so we do this in the international arena, which is a World Trade Organization, where we can be able to, which is a forum for trade negotiations. And also on top of that, we are also members of the National Trade Facilitation Committee. We are also members of the National Sanitary and Phytosanitary Committee. All these committees generally assist the private sector in relation to looking at addressing their challenges for purposes of trade facilitation. So Kenya Bureau of Standards plays a very key role in trade facilitation in the country. Kenya Bureau of Standards also plays a big role in bilateral negotiations. For any trade agreement that is being signed by the country, there is usually a trade and standards component in it. So we have trained negotiators who are involved in trade negotiations, for example, with countries like the United States, countries like the United Arab Emirates, and where we represent the country and negotiate on behalf of the country for us to be able to have a proper trade agreement. I also have a passion for leadership and mentorship, and I have been able to be trained in the same, and I love coaching young ladies, especially on negotiation skills and communication skills, so that they can be able to move up in terms of the leadership ladder. My hobbies are I love singing, so I'm a member of the KEBS choir and I'm actually their leader. And under this choir, we've been able to entertain during national events under the Permanent Presidential Music Commission. My name is Lucy Ikonya and I'm proudly KEBS.
Good evening, good afternoon, how are you and welcome. This is Kenya Bureau of Standards. My name is Dennis and this is Ask KEBS. Asante sana for watching and asante sana for making time. Yes, we are back. We always make sure to come back and make sure you have learned more about Kenya Bureau of Standards. We tell you more about what we do. We tell you more about the processes about standards and even about standards development. So stay tuned. This episode is going to be a very interesting one. This episode is called Ask KEBS. Hapa tunauliza maswali. So if you have any questions, any question that you have ever wanted to ask Kenya Bureau of Standards, today is the day. Chukua simu yako, join this live, share with your friends, let them know that today you're watching Kenya Bureau of Standards and you can ask us all of those questions. One, you can use our comment section. That is if you're watching us on Facebook, kama unatuona pale Twitter ama X. You can also make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and also wale wanatuona pale YouTube, thank you so much for making time. This is Ask KEBS. My name is Dennis. Ask KEBS has been a series that has been coming to you to tell you more about Kenya Bureau of Standards. We've talked about metrology. We've talked about our certification body. We've talked about our quality assurance process. We've talked about our market surveillance, how KEBS is in the market. We've talked about so many other processes. So today, we want to talk about now what is actually a standard and how do we actually get to develop them. So this episode is called Standards Development and Trade. We are learning about that process and how it works. And to help us break it all down, we are joined by our experts, and the experts will never run short at Kenya Bureau of Standards. We have so many, and to help us break down the whole process of how a standard comes to be. We are joined by our friend James. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much for making time.
Anytime.
What are your full names, sir?
My name is James Njerai Nduati. I work as a standards officer at Kenya Bureau of Standards. Yes.
So when you say you are a standards officer,
yes.
What does a standards officer do at KEBS?
Yeah, basically a standards officer is the main function of a standard officer is to develop standards. And these are documents that prescribe a certain degree of order that should be met by a product, a service, or a procedure.
So you as a standards officer, then you are party to the development of such a document?
Yes, I'm actually involved in the standards development with many functions, as we shall discuss them as we call the process continues.
Okay.
So that's the main function.
So you say the standard is a document?
This is a document established through consensus and approved by a national standards body. And in this case, we are talking about KEBS. KEBS is the national standards body.
So when you say consensus, what are you saying consensus? What does it mean?
Yeah, consensus basically is the general agreement. This is the way to do things. And this consensus is built by a sitting of the technical committee.
A sitting of a technical committee.
Yes.
Okay, so there is a consensus and then there is an approval.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I hope sasa umeanza kupata. This is where it all begins. The document that is called a standard. Yes. It has a process.
Yes.
Okay, I want you now to start from there.
Yes.
Where does this whole process, standard, document.
Yeah.
Kwanza, I've already seen a question already come here and said, ni nyinyi huwa mna set standards. So how we want to answer that question by you telling us what is this whole process of developing that document?
All right. So the process of developing a standard is not a KEBS process. What do you mean? In that case, I mean that it is not KEBS who develops the standards. We are the custodian and the approvers of the standard, but the standards are developed through a technical committee.
Okay,
yes.
So we are not the ones who actually set or develop or rather define what to be in that document.
Not really. That is defined by the experts in a sitting of a technical committee, because that TC will comprise of the various users of the standards.
Okay. You've already started getting technical. Sijui kama umesikia jina TC imetajwa pale. Sasa nataka uturudishe mwanzo.
Yes.
Tuanze kwa hii development. Okay. You said it's not really our mandate
Yes.
as KEBS to actually set what is in that document. So what then happens?
What happens basically is that when a request comes for a standard to be developed, first of all, we review whether that technical committee that will develop or fits the scope of that request exists. That's the main first thing. When that is established, and maybe we find that this TC or technical committee
TC is
exists.
technical committee.
Yes.
Now we have
Yeah, and this technical committee is just maybe to take you back, is comprised of various members. KEBS serves as the secretariat of this technical committee. Yeah, so one of my role, as you asked when you were starting,
Yes.
is being a technical committee secretary.
Aha.
Yes, because the technical committee, the secretary is KEBS.
Aha.
Other members of the TC will include the other government agencies that are interested in that particular field. We also have consumer bodies. We also have regulators. If we are developing maybe a standard for road bumps, one of the regulator that would be in that TC is like the National Transport and Safety Authority.
Being that they are party to it.
They are party to it, their area of interest. So they will be part of that technical committee. Another reliable person in that TC or body is the academia, because they're involved in the research and everything. So that sitting, coming together, is what develops a standard.
And that sitting is called a technical committee.
Yes.
Now we understand. Please go on.
So when a request comes, we take it. We start with the proposal stage, and that is a request for a standard.
Who makes that request?
This can be done by anybody, any interested person, be it a consumer, an expert, a manufacturer, a regulator. They can make a request for development of a standard. And this is done, we are going digital nowadays. It's done online. Or if someone still prefers, they can also write a letter to the Managing Director of Kenya Bureau of Standards requesting for development of a certain standard.
Now a proposal has come.
Yeah, a proposal comes in and we review it as the Standards Development Department. If it is a proposal touching on the food sector, for example, it will be developed by the division, the food division.
Oh, there are divisions?
Yeah. Within the Department of Standards Development, we have various divisions because we are dealing with a broad range of products. It can be a food product, it can be an electrical appliance product, it can be chemical products like the plastics that are used in various uses. So we review it, and after that is done, that request is processed internally. We have internal procedures that we process that request. And once that is approved by a sitting of an internal committee, it proceeds now to the next stage.
So then it means that you as a standards officer then, you have to be an expert in a certain field.
Yeah, sure. You have to be an expert in a certain field. Like for myself, I'm an expert in the food sector. So any standard that is touching on the food sector and specifically on the subsectors that are within the food, if it is maybe the sector for fats and oils and such, I'll be assigned that work and progress it to the next stages.
So now a proposal has come, the internal committee has sat down, evaluated, determined that there is a technical committee or not. Now what happens from there?
So once that is determined, now all that was the proposal stage. Proposals, which is stage 1. So after that, it moves to the next stage, which is the committee stage. Now the committee stage, you heard me saying TC. Now this is the committee. It's part of, it's from the name TC, this is the committee stage.
So these are now the experts you're talking about?
Yes. So in that case, now we'll start holding technical committee meetings to discuss the various aspects of that standard. It is also assumed that at this proposal stage, I have done some desk reviews. I've looked at what exists. I've compared with other national standards bodies and developed a draft that can be discussed by the technical committee.
So the standards officer at KEBS
Yes.
will do some bits of research and come out with a draft.
Yes.
Which now is what the technical committee will be discussing.
True.
Yeah. So now that's stage 2.
Yeah, that's the committee stage, is the stage 2. It can be a series of meetings.
Yes.
If need be, even some visits to the industry just to understand the various aspects.
You do that?
Yes.
So if you talk about, say, you're an expert in the food industry,
Yeah.
you have formed a technical committee, or the technical committee for that specific field or product that you're about to develop, you might need to even go to the industry.
Yeah, I'll need to go to the industry because it is where the product is being manufactured. So I need to understand their processes.
Yes.
I need to understand their parameters. I need to understand also their concerns. And just to ensure that this standard, once it comes to effect, it will be easily implemented.
Yes.
And we won't set requirements that are unachievable for the industry.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that is step 2, the technical committee.
Yeah, this is the technical committee stage.
So we have a proposal. Sijui kama mnafuata. Unajua hii ni Ask KEBS. Nataka muulize maswali. So if you're following this session, we are talking about the standards development process, the document that is developed through consensus. So it starts from a proposal, and you said anybody can make a proposal.
Anybody can make a proposal.
And then you review it internally.
Yes.
Then you decide whether to proceed with it through a technical committee, which is stage 2.
Stage 2, the committee
Tumefika
stage.
stage 2.
Yeah.
Let's go on.
So this committee stage will proceed with discussions, add to the draft that was developed, enrich it
Yes.
to a point that the technical committee is satisfied that this draft can move on to the next stage. And that is stage 3.
Stage 3?
Yeah.
What is stage 3?
Stage 3 is basically public review stage.
What do you mean when you say public review?
Yeah, we have had issues of public participation. In simple words, it's just public participation.
It's the same as public participation?
Yeah, it's the same as public
What happens at this stage?
So at this stage, the document is sent out to the public, and that is through the KEBS website forums.
Yes.
For other people who are not part of the TC, to have their views on this standard.
Oh, these TC members are not the final decision makers?
These are not the final decision makers. This standard is subjected to the general public. For their views, they can send in their comments. The TC will again discuss these comments. At this stage also, we notify other countries because we work under the World Trade Organization. So we notify other countries who are interested in trading with Kenya that there is a document that is being developed for them also to give their inputs.
So not only does it go to the Kenyan general public, it also goes to our other stakeholders in other countries.
Yes, it goes to the whole world entirely.
The whole world, actually.
Yeah, sure.
So they will be notified that there is a document that is being developed.
Yes.
And
these are the certain requirements it will have. These are some of the trade implications it might have. So they are notified for them to give in their comments. So that they are incorporated in the development process. Yeah.
So now that is stage 3.
That's stage 3.
Public
review
or public participation.
Yes.
Kwa wale tunapenda hiyo jina.
Public,
participation.
Yes.
Please carry on.
Now after that, if there are any comments that come in either from the public or from other countries, they are resolved again by the technical committee.
The one at stage 2?
Yeah, the one at stage 2.
Oh, they are alive to this process?
Yeah, they are alive to this process. It's a continuous process. So those comments are discussed, they are resolved. And again, once consensus is achieved and the technical committee agrees to the things that are proposed, we move on now to the balloting stage, which is stage 4.
Balloting.
Yes.
When you say balloting, ni kama ile ya kupiga kura?
Ni kama tu kupiga kura. But now this one we restrict the voting to technical committee members.
The members now.
Yes. So they are given a period of 2 weeks to just ballot on the draft, whether it's acceptable. And we have a certain acceptable criteria, which is basically 2/3. So if 2/3 of the technical committee members accept the ballot, then in that case now it moves to the stage 5.
So the 2/3, it means now the technical committee in question has agreed.
Yes.
So the consensus has been met.
The consensus has been met.
That's why you started with the word consensus.
Yes,
now it makes sense. So a consensus has been achieved.
Yes.
Now we move to the next stage.
Yeah, and at that stage, remember we started with a draft standard.
Yes.
It's a draft Kenya standard we started with. So once the balloting stage is complete,
Yes.
we call it now a final draft Kenya standard.
A final draft Kenya standard. So there is a draft Kenya standards and a final draft Kenya standards.
Yes.
The difference is
the draft Kenya standard is still under discussion at the committee, bringing in comments from the public, from other countries. But once it is balloted on and the acceptance criteria has been met, it becomes a final draft Kenya standard.
What happens to it?
So after that, it goes to the approval stage. Remember when we started, we said it has to be an approved document by a national standards body, in this case, KEBS. So the approval is by the management board of KEBS in 2 stages. We have the standards appraisal committee, which is just a subcommittee of the National Standards Council. So they recommend that document. It is presented, they review it. Once they recommend it, it is taken now to the full board, that is the National Standards Council, for approval.
So at this point of recommendation by the approval, or this subcommittee stage, has there been an instance where a document can be determined not to proceed at that stage?
Yeah, there are such cases. Maybe there is a burning issue that has come maybe from the public. There's a limit that has been set and there are complaints of how it's going to be achieved. So it can be taken back to the committee stage for resolution of all those comments.
And then goes back to the public review, balloting, approval now.
That process is still followed.
Okay.
So the approval is done in those 2 levels. And now, once the approval is done, we go to the last stage of publication.
Publication?
Yes.
What do you mean when you say publication? I thought when they approve and that's it. It's a document I can download somewhere.
Yeah, because at this stage, the publication is to make it a legal document. It goes and it is published in the Kenya Gazette.
Oh, it has to be published in the Kenya Gazette?
Yes, it has to be published in a Kenya Gazette for it to take effect as a Kenya standard. And in that case, now the word final draft moves away and it becomes a Kenya standard.
A Kenya standard.
Yes.
Now this is a document that is now agreed, approved, and published.
And published.
Wow. So when you now say this this document has been agreed, discussed, a technical committee, but why do we need all that? See, we know that come on, tissue. We know tissue should be tissue. Why should we need to call a whole team of experts, have them do all this? And even I've seen somebody ask, how long does that take?
Yeah. So basically, when we are developing a standard, our principal aim is to, 1, facilitate trade. Secondly, to protect or safeguard the consumer, the health and safety of the consumer. And third, to protect the environment. Those are the 3 main reasons for standards development. So the reason we are developing this standard is to ensure that as you use that maybe tissue paper, is it safe for your use? Will it leave any damage as you are using it?
Yes.
Will there be trade barriers that are established by this product? So
trade
the main
barriers.
Yes.
What do you mean when you say trade barriers?
By that we mean issues that can come up when you are trying maybe to trade a product.
Yes.
There's certain requirements that are set there. So we need to eliminate these barriers to ensure that the trade is facilitated. All people can trade in numbers for this product. It can access the market. Yes.
So that's why then when we started, we were talking about the standards development, and now there is a trade aspect.
Yes.
They're not different.
No, they are connected in that this standard is prescribing, first of all, the safety and also facilitating trade, in that if this product meets a certain level of quality that is specified by the standard, you can trade that product. It will be able to access the market. Yes.
Okay, that's amazing. So the trade aspect about it is closely tied to the process of these standards.
Yes.
Making the document called a standard.
Yes, because we are developing the standard to guide the manufacturers in how they shall produce either a product, a service, and this is the minimum requirement of this product.
Amazing. I hope mnafuata. Unajua, when we started talking about this whole process, you said it was how many steps? 7?
6. Yes.
6 processes. Somebody did a proposal. We informed a TC, or a TC was convened.
Yes.
They discussed a draft.
Yes.
They went and took public views.
Yes.
Wakakuja kwako nyumbani ama wakapublish pale kwa website wakasema tuko na draft document tunataka maoni. Ukapeana maoni.
Yes.
Now hiyo maoni ikakuwa discussed na the technical committee.
Yes.
And then they went and did balloting. Kama ile ya kupiga kura.
True.
And there's a criteria.
Yes.
Which is, you said it's
2/3.
Yes. So this 2/3 has been met.
Yes.
Now this document goes ahead and goes
to
approval.
Yes.
And then it is published.
Yes.
Amazing. Now I hope anytime you ever get a question about how standards are developed, hata ukiwa pale nyumbani, ukiwa ulizwa standards huwa inadevelopiwa aje, you know that it has a stage process and it starts from a proposal all the way to publication. Thank you so much, James, for making that easy for us.
Yes.
Now, when we are now trying to marry the trade aspect,
yes,
you said the standard has to be the one that will make sure trade happens.
Yes.
So how does then? I want us to probably then discuss further about how then this standard affects trade.
Okay.
And I want you to put a pause on that because right now I want us to take a very, very short break so that we can internalize your process.
Yes.
You have made us feel like we have seated in a technical committee.
True.
In a technical committee,
yes. Yes, it's just a small tech TC to just brief you on how it is done and to tell the public that this is not a KEBS process.
Yes.
Anybody who has interested in a certain field can participate in standards development.
Amazing. I hope you have learned that. We're taking a very, very short break. I'll leave you with a very interesting video to show you how, when these standards are developed, zinaingianga wapi na zinatumika wapi. Take a break.
My name is Luvonga Caleb. I've been working for Kenya Bureau of Standards since 2004. This is a place I call home. I wake up every morning excited to work because I know that I am going to solve a problem for the country. I am going to help the industry to grow. So I started as a laboratory analyst 3 and then grown through the scales at Kenya Bureau of Standards up to where I am right now. I'm the manager, organic laboratory. And organic laboratory actually has 3 sections. So the first section is a petroleum laboratory. And then there's a wet chemistry laboratory. We do soaps, we do cosmetic stuff, and then we also have chromatography. So chromatography is where we are right now. This is the laboratory where we look at food preservative, we analyze alcoholic beverages, look at things like pesticide residues, fatty acid, hydrocarbon profile. Actually, one of the things that was stood out for me is the journey of analysis of alcoholic beverages. Prior to 2015, we used to have quite a number of deaths in the country, and that was worrying. What happened is that we went now, I put on my research cap, I went and did a lot of literature review, and then I came across a chemical called dinatonium benzoate. Dinatonium benzoate is a chemical, it's very bitter. In fact, the commercial name is called Bitrex. It is the most bitter chemical known to man. So we discovered that we could actually add dinatonium benzoate to methanol. And why were we adding dinatonium benzoate to methanol? Because in the western part of the country, this is where we have the sugar producing companies. And these sugar producing companies would also prepare ethanol as a byproduct and methanol also as a byproduct. So they would sell ethanol and methanol which would be carried in tankers to be brought to Nairobi and or to other parts of the country for industrial use and also for use in the production of potable spirits or alcoholic beverages. So there was no clear way of telling the difference between ethanol and methanol just by looking at it. Because even if I gave it to you, there's no clear way of telling that. So the only way you can be able to tell the difference is to have a gas chromatograph. So at that particular time, the manufacturers of alcoholic beverages did not have gas chromatographs. So what they would do is sometimes they would get ethanol or methanol, thinking that it is ethanol, and then they would go and mix water in the right proportions and probably put flavors and whatever, and then they would present it to clients as an alcoholic beverage. And you know, when you're taking alcohol, it is usually ethanol in water, not methanol in water. So when they give the clients the alcoholic beverage, it's actually methanol in water. So this is what was causing blindness, and this is what was causing deaths amongst the consumers. So in that particular case, so we identified methanol as the problem. We had to find a way of making methanol inaccessible, or even if it's used intentionally or unintentionally, the consumer would not be able to drink it. So we decided to denature it. We decided to denature it using that chemical, denatonium benzoate, which is extremely bitter. Even if it's given the denatured methanol is accidentally available, and you try to make an alcoholic beverage out of it, you cannot actually swallow it. So that was a deterrent to ensure that nobody uses methanol in a production of alcoholic beverage. I would like to tell all the customers or stakeholders that Kenya Bureau of Standards is doing everything it can to ensure that the products that are put in the market are safe for human consumption. My name is Luvonga Caleb, and I'm proudly KEBS.
And we are back. Karibuni sana. Thank you so much for tuning and keeping Kenya Bureau of Standards. This is Ask KEBS. My name is Dennis, and we are talking about the process of standards development and trade. And to help us break it all down, we have Mr. James Ndwati hapa,
Yes.
who has been making the process sound so easy. How standards development start from a proposal all the way to a publication. Thank you so much, Ken Odor, for watching. Thank you, Zach. As Ken Odor amesema, good job, James, breaking down the standards development process and the positive impact of standards. Mwingine anaitwa Zach amesema, great job, Ndwati. Also, I'm seeing Director Rotich is also watching. Thank you so much for making time to watch and to follow this episode mpaka mahali tulipo. Remember, we are live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter, that is X, we are live on YouTube. And make sure you like, share, and let your friends know that today we are learning more about the process of standards development and trade. So tulikuwa tumefika pale kwa publication.
Yes.
Na nikakwambia tutarudi sasa utuambie trade.
Trade aspect.
Hii trade ulisema has a relationship.
Yes.
There's this relationship between a standards development and trade.
Yes.
I want you to take us through that process. What happens there?
All right. So when we talk about the trade, we all know that for you maybe to sell a product in the Kenyan market,
Yes.
you have to have a permit.
A permit.
Or a standardization mark. So that standardization mark, for you to obtain that mark,
Yes.
that particular product has to be subjected to the requirements in this standard.
The standard. So like this.
So for example, if we want to trade on bags for maize.
So this is a standard for maize inaitwa?
For woven
polyethylene sacks or bags for maize meal.
For maize meal.
So standards are that specific?
Yes, they are quite specific.
So kwa sababu hii ni bag.
Yes.
Lakini si bag yoyote, ni ya maize meal.
True.
So
this for you to trade, maybe you want to sell this particular product.
Yes.
To the manufacturers of maize meal.
Yes.
For you to trade in that product, you have to have the standardization mark or the permit. So that for you to get that permit, the bag that you want to sell has to be subjected to the requirements stipulated in this standard. Yes.
Oh, it works like that?
Yes, that's how it works.
So hata mwenye anatengeneza maji, kuna standard ya maji?
Yes, there's a standard for drinking water. And for you now to sell that product, it has to be tested
Yes.
by our KEBS testing department
Yes.
to ascertain that it meets the requirements of that water standard.
Yes.
And from there, the quality assurance will give the mark for you to sell
The
that.
permit.
Yes.
Kama umekuwa ukifuata hii episode, we actually had an episode called the quality assurance process where we talked about the marks that Kenya Bureau of Standards gives and where they even come from. They start from when this document called a standard is developed, it has the requirements.
Yes.
And we say when these requirements are met,
Yes.
then a mark is issued.
Yes.
So then you are the people who make sure this document exists.
Yes.
So the trade aspect has that relationship.
Has that relationship. Another aspect, we mentioned that when we are developing this standard, we notify the trade partners for their input, just to ensure that when this standard is developed and the requirements that are set will not be too restrictive for trade. We said we set the minimum requirements that a product must meet. Yes.
So like, for example, if you talk about our neighbor countries like Uganda, Tanzania, so we will notify their Bureau of Standards or their national standards bodies there and tell them we have a standard for maize bags, maize meal bags that we are developing and we would like your input because these are our requirements. Do they match what you have or do you have inputs to them?
True.
Yes.
And you have mentioned a very important aspect also.
Yes.
Another issue about trade is the harmonization of standards. So maybe it's a concept I can introduce.
Harmonization?
Yes.
What do you mean when you say harmonization?
With harmonization, there are various frameworks where we do this. One of them is the East African Community. And under this, we hold joint sittings or joint technical committees and develop East African standards.
When we developed the one for Kenya, with the one that has a 6-stage process, it is a Kenya standard.
It's a Kenya standard.
So then you will call now the other people from the other countries that form the East Africa region, and you form a joint
TC.
Then what comes out of it is now not a Kenyan standard.
It's an East African standard.
What does it mean when it's an East African
standard?
So
when it is an East African standard, it has been agreed by all East African partner states, and all the requirements have been harmonized and agreed by the partner states and their representatives. It means that that product is applicable within the whole East African region. So it becomes a more superior standard than the Kenyan standard.
So somebody who's making, like, say, water, which has been harmonized, I hope I'm using that word right, now the standard harmonized, that means somebody in Uganda and Tanzania is using a similar standard to the one in Kenya.
Yes.
So that works.
Yeah, that works because now when you get maybe a permit from Kenya or the KEBS standardization mark, it means if it has been subjected to the East African standard, that product you can trade it across the East African region without any other restriction.
The trade aspect.
Yes.
Now you can take it to any of those countries.
Yes. And you can access those markets.
So with a Kenyan mark that has been issued from a East African standard, you can sell it across the East Africa region.
True.
Wow. So kama uko na product na unataka kuuza across the region, I think then you need to be very alive to the standards that we are probably going to certify your product against. So if your product is going to be certified by the East African standard, your market is that wide.
Yes.
Wow. Trade is that big when it comes to standards.
Yes, that we go various levels. We move from the regional level, regional mostly for KEBS, or for Kenya, we are talking of the ESC. We also have the African continent. Again, we participate in development of African standards.
They are African standards?
They are also African standards.
Yes.
So again, we participate, we harmonize them at that level. So now you move from the East Africa and now you go to the African level, whereby now you can access the African market, having complied to the standards for Africa.
Oh, amazing. I'm so interested now for you to talk to us about then what difference, how do we then know? Because when I was looking at this standard, for example, I see it's already named and titled, but now how do I know that this is an East African one, or this is a Kenyan one, or this is an African one, or any other way? Is there a way I can tell?
Yes.
How?
So for the standard from the title, like this one, it's KEBS 2286.
Where is that denoted?
So this is KES.
KS 22. Hebu
Yes.
waonyeshe hii
Yes.
kwa sababu hata wewe mwenye unatafuta standards utasikia hiyo jina ikitajwa KS. So hiyo
Yeah, so the KES just basically means a Kenya standard.
aha.
Yes.
KS.
KES.
When
It's
you
a
see
Kenya
it
standard.
without any other, it's just Kenya
It's a
standard.
Kenya standard. So for the East African region, when I said about the harmonization,
Yes.
once these standards are harmonized at EAC, and they are called East African standards,
Yes.
it is our obligation as the EAC partner states to adopt those standards
Yes.
as Kenya standards within a period of 6 months.
After they have been harmonized.
After they have been harmonized and gazetted at the East African community,
Yes.
within 6 months, each partner state is supposed to adopt
The same
that
standard.
standard as it is to become a national standard.
Aha.
So in that case,
Yes.
it will first be an East African standard, but when we adopt it, we add the prefix KES.
KES.
So it becomes a Kenya standard, East African standard, this number. Yes.
So that's the nomenclature of how these standards are titled and how
Yes.
you can tell the difference.
Yes, that's how you can tell. So if it's a KES, EAS, means it has been harmonized at the EAC level.
Yes.
And adopted as a Kenya standard. So maybe for another partner states like Uganda, they will put US. Uganda standard, East African standard.
But it is the same
It's the
document.
same standard.
Aha.
Yeah.
And when I now that we have this example of a standard here, maybe you can just probably tell us what do we expect when a customer or somebody is looking for a standard, and what do they expect to find in this very document?
Yes.
Say for example, you say the requirements go up and down.
Yes.
Sindio?
Yes.
What other information do I find in this very document?
Okay. So the standard will give, first of all, what the product being entailed, that is the scope of the standard. It will give the applicability of this standard. So it will specify that this standard applies to this particular product, and it will also give any other exemptions that any product should not be subjected to. That's the coverage of this particular standard.
Will I know who sat in this development of this?
Yes, the standard also contains the technical committee representation.
Yes.
Of course, we acknowledge the persons or the experts who sat to develop the standard. No, we don't acknowledge by name.
Yes.
We acknowledge by their institution. Because when a person is participating, they represent
a certain
their organization or their appointing authority.
So if I take this one for maize mill,
yes.
So where will I find that representation? Is there a place?
Yes, just on the second page.
On the second page,
yes. Just right there, the technical committee
representation.
Yes.
So like this one I am holding, I can see Tetia Estate, I can see Refia Bags, I see Premier. So all these people and they will not be the same as the one who are in this one, necessarily.
Ideally, it will be the same because it is from that technical committee that will review even the East African standard to ascertain that they will participate in the development. They will develop positions that Kenya will present in that harmonization process.
Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm seeing Naomi Masharia is watching. She's saying, well done, James. Amesema amefurahia sana kuona hii episode. I see Maklova Abisai saying, wonderful exposition. Question. How does the standardization process guard itself from unscrupulous manufacturers who may lobby to make specifications less stringent or be removed from a standard? How do you do that actually? Manufacturer ameamua, okay, nataka kukua member wa technical committee, ndiyo in favor. How does that work?
All right. So first of all, we have an application process for TC membership. And in this case, we look at the academic qualifications based on that sector. We are applying to be a TC for, let's say, production of the cereals and pulses, for example.
Yeah.
That particular person will have to have a qualification or an educational background
in that field
to ensure that they will give technical inputs into that process. Another way we do that is to ensure that the leadership of that particular TC is from a non-partisan organization.
Non-partisan means
it is that the leadership is not from a person of interest, like you say the manufacturer. Yes, they cannot be a chairperson of that technical committee.
They can just be a member.
They can be a member, but they cannot be a chairperson. We ensure that the chairperson comes from government agencies, from the academia, to ensure that it's a neutral person, so that they will not influence the decisions that are made in that TC.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So all that falls under the standards development and the trade aspect.
Yes.
So when you started talking about the African, the East African,
Yes.
then I've seen a question here asked then, is KEBS going to go to those levels, going to say now we are convening at a committee at this level of African because we want to develop an African standard. How does that work? Is there other bodies, it's just KEBS calling all the other African countries to one place?
Okay. So for the East African standards, they are developed under the framework of the East African Community, and under the framework of the East African Standards Committee, and that is the body that will convene the East African Technical Committee meetings. It will not be that. It will not be KEBS at that.
Yes.
But KEBS will offer participation in sometimes leadership. You remember we said that TC has to have a secretary.
Yes.
So KEBS is secretary to some of the East African Standards Committee, technical committees. So in that case, the framework of development of East African Standard is under the East African Standards Committee procedures. And there is a clear procedure on how that is done, with all partner states participating, offering leadership where they can.
Yes.
Yes. But the only difference is that the requests for a standard to be developed at the East African level will now not come from you as a person, like the Kenya standard. It will be presented by KEBS on behalf of Kenya. So if you want an East African standards to be developed, you'll make the request to KEBS.
Yes.
The KEBS will process that request and now make a request not as for you, but for the whole country.
So ni Kenya imeenda kurequest,
Ni Kenya imesema we want to harmonize this standard, and that is reviewed for progress as per the EAC procedures.
Amazing. Yes. And now when you talk about, I've seen somebody asking, is there then a difference between KS, EAS, what about ISO? Hiyo nayo ni nini? Ameuliza hapa.
Yeah, now the hierarchy continues. Now ISO is the International Organization for Standardization. And just from the word international, it is a global standards development body, touching on many sectors. It can be all across. So these are the global standards that are applied in various fields. We also have the Codex standards.
Codex?
Yes.
What do you mean when you say Codex?
Codex is the Codex Alimentarius Commission. This one focuses on food and feed standards. So remember, for ISO, we said it is across.
Across, yes.
For Codex is the food and feed standards, specific to food and feed. We also have the IEC.
IEC?
That is the International Electrotechnical Commission.
Yes.
And again, from the name, it will focus on standards relating to electronics, electrical appliances, and such.
So there exist different now organizations that are now sector specific. Apart from ISO, which is across the board for all, and now the Kenya standards being for the Kenyan, the national standards body being KEBS.
Yes.
I hope mmelewa hizi vitu. Unajua, the reason why we have this session and why Ask KEBS is coming to you every 2 episodes every month is because we want to make sure that you understand our processes. You understand what standards are for. How do they affect your life? How do standards make you as a consumer, Mkenya pale nyumbani? Unajua, when you James came to this episode and when we were starting, you told us there was consensus. You told us kuna mambo ya public participation. So it means KEBS does not sit down somewhere and decide standard ya unga ya ugali itakuwa hivi. Kuna watu watakaa chini, and all that KEBS is just a secretariat.
Yes. We follow the views that are presented in the TC. We gather the data that is needed. So these are Kenya standards, even from the name. And any person can participate in the TC, so long as they have the technical expertise to that particular sector. So it becomes not KEBS standard, but Kenya standards.
Kenya standards. And once it is gazetted, once it is put in the Kenya Gazette, now it is a law. It is a law. So anybody who wants to make that product must conform to that.
Yes.
And if you come to KEBS, then we'll give you it's called a permit.
A permit.
An S mark.
S mark,
To
basically.
confirm that you have met
You have
the
met the
standards.
requirements of that standard, and therefore you can trade. Remember the trade aspect, you can trade either within the country or within the East African region, the African region.
Yes.
So you get more market access from the point of the manufacturer's point of view. For the consumers, as we are developing the standards, we are looking at the health and safety of the consumer, to ensure that if you take that ugali, it is safe for you. It has the required levels of that doesn't exceed the limits that are set maybe for aflatoxin and such. So all those will be contained in the standard.
In the standard.
Yeah.
So the standard is always the guide. And that is what Kenya Bureau of Standards is doing. We are here to protect and make sure that you have safeguarded your life, the consumers out there. So you as a Kenyan, anytime you're going to buy a product and you see it with a KEBS mark, it means that it has been confirmed to have met the standard that it is supposed to meet. And that is why the mark that you're seeing displayed there is displayed as is. And I actually want to show you how to even verify. So anytime you're going to the market and you're buying products, you will see that a product has a mark, the KEBS mark.
Yeah.
Below it, there is a number. It's called a standardization mark number. It starts with SM hash. That number you can verify. And how you will do that is 2 ways, or 3 actually. You can, 1, use our SMS platform. That is our short code 20023. So send that code SM hash, that number. Send it to 20023. Or go to Play Store right now, download the KEBS app. We have an app on Play Store. Actually, if you also go to iOS, iPhone, we also have you covered. So on iOS, that is Apple Store, we also have that app. Download the KEBS app. Go and verify that permit number. Also, just go to our KEBS website, that is www.kebs.org. Go to verify marks of quality. You can be able to verify all those marks so that when you're buying, you're sure that the products you're going to buy or you're about to consume have met the standards. And the experts, like Akina James here, who have sat down and made sure that the standards are there, they exist, they have been met. So you can be rest assured that KEBS is out there to make sure your life is easier. This is Ask KEBS. My name is Dennis. I have more and more questions coming in. I've seen Mina, amesema good job. Lumuluen Resubela, amesema awesome. Amependa ile kazi unafanya. And thank you so much. These are the people who are making sure standards exist in the country.
Sure.
Thank you so much. This is Ask KEBS. My name is Dennis. It's been a pleasure and such an amazing episode to have you guys. I want you to probably take a minute looking at that camera.
Yeah.
Ongelesha watu wa nyumbani. Waambie ile kazi mnafanya and probably your parting shot, Mr. James.
Yeah, so thank you for this opportunity. So KEBS mandate is basically provision of standardization, metrology, and conformity assessment services. Today we have talked about the standardization aspects and how standards are developed, and the linkage between the standards to conformity assessment procedures, basically quality assurance, market surveillance, and inspection. And we have seen that the standards that KEBS is the custodian in their development are used in quality assurance, ensuring that the products and services that you consume meet the required, the specific requirements in the standards, and also surveilling the market to ensure that all the requirements of the standards are complied. So as you can see, it's an interplay of the conformity assessment being fed from the standard point of view. So KEBS is out there to protect you, to facilitate your trade, and of course ensure that we protect the environment in everything that we do. So it has been a pleasure to have you, and we hope that you will now be more involved in the standards development process. We hope for your inputs, and standards will also promote your innovation, because if you have a particular product that you are producing, you can always request for the development of that particular standard to ensure that you are able to trade and access the market.
Amazing. That is why we say here at Kenya Bureau of Standards, it's standards for quality life. So if you're watching this episode, we are live on our YouTube platform, that is at Kenya Bureau of Standards. We are live on Facebook. We are also live on Twitter, formerly inaitwa X, formerly called Twitter. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dennis. It's been such a pleasure. Such a pleasure to have you guys. The hashtag is AskKEBS. Keep those questions coming. I want to leave you with a very amazing video showing you the people that are behind Kenya Bureau of Standards, doing what they do proudly, Kenya Bureau of Standards. That's my time. Thank you so much for watching.
My name is Tom Odor, currently serving as manager, testing services, Lake Region. I actually joined Kenya Bureau of Standards in July 1998 as a laboratory analyst, entry grade. It's actually been a roller coaster, especially in matters professional development. I trained as a chemist, and I've been privileged to work in this organization as a chemist, serving in the laboratories since I joined, save for a 2-year break in between. So all along, throughout this journey, I have grown in the ranks, starting from an entry-level officer, getting into management. Now I am in management and really enjoying what I'm doing for this organization. I work at headquarters, a lab known as Inorganic Chemistry. That is where I honed my skills. Joining that unit as an assistant lab analyst and rising to the position of being a manager of that particular laboratory. So from there, I can say the lessons learned have been immense. One, managing people, managing hardware, connecting with customers for all we do, getting quite a number of trainings professionally, networking with even my peers and counterparts in the country, within East Africa, and even outside Africa. Professionally, I've really grown. One, learning all the new things that we were not taught in school. It's like getting into KEBS, that was another phase of learning. And throughout that learning, I have grown as a professional to a point where now I could easily and I can easily connect with the theory I studied back then to practice that is delivering actual products to the people out here. My day, you will get into work, review your work schedules, assign roles here and there, interact a lot with clients, whether they're external or our own internal clients, because we have a very big internal clientele base. We have to touch base with them every now and then. Get to know what it is that concern them, where we are doing okay, what we need to up our games onto. So it's quite a handful, and this cycle can continue. Largely interactions with internal stakeholders, where these are direct customers. Again, internally, our partners in business. We have to keep on engaging them. My partners in procurement here, finance, HR, I have to train somebody, I have to get HR. So these interactions with even our other sister departments keep me going every other day. So really, this work has a direct impact on people's lives out there. We get it right all the time. People are happy to place their products in the market because I am in a position to give that assurance that what is being placed in the market actually complies with the standard requirements. What makes me really proud to be KEBS is the impact of what I do on people's lives out there. The impact of what I do on the commercial sector, where my work directly facilitates trade. Two, the opportunities for growth professionally that I've really gotten at KEBS really make me a proud member of this community. We do offer testing services, and these services are not restricted to KEBS operations only. The services are open to clients out there, the industry. Everybody else who would want to check the quality of their products is free to use our facility. And by doing this, at industry level, you are in a position to improve your products, reduce your losses, and even access markets in ways that you may not have known before. So talk to us, reach out to us. We will always get solutions through testing to try and help you place your products in the market. My name is Tom Odur, and I'm proudly KEBS.